Scientists took blood samples from 10 different regions of Pakistan. They expected to find 10 different stories. Instead, they found one secret that nobody was ready for. If your own family history could surprise you like this, stay close, because by the end of this video, you might want to ask your grandparents a few questions you never thought to ask before. For most of our lives, we grow up believing a simple story about who we are. We are told we belong to a certain tribe. We are told our ancestors came from a certain place. We are told our blood carries a certain history. In Pakistan, this story is especially strong. People in Punjab believe they carry the blood of ancient warriors and farmers. People in Sindh believe they carry the blood of one of the oldest civilizations on Earth. People in the north, in places like Gilgit and Hunza, believe they carry the blood of travelers who once crossed mountains that most humans would never dare to cross. People in Balochistan believe they carry the blood of desert tribes who lived free and untouched for thousands of years. And people in the Pashtun regions often say they carry the blood of soldiers from faraway lands, a story passed down for generations like a secret badge of honor. These stories are not just stories. They shape identity. They shape marriage decisions. They shape pride. They shape arguments at dinner tables. They even shape how people see themselves in the mirror. For centuries, no one had the tools to test these stories. No one could look inside a human cell and read the truth hidden there. People simply believed what they were told because belief was all they had. But something changed. Modern science gave researchers a new kind of lens. Not a lens made of glass, but a lens made of biology. DNA. The tiny code inside every human body that quietly remembers where we came from, even when our minds forget. DNA does not care about pride. It does not care about old stories. It does not care about borders drawn by kings or colonizers. It simply remembers. It carries whispers from thousands of years ago, passed silently from parent to child, hidden in nearly every cell of the body. So scientists asked a question that sounds simple but is actually explosive. If we compare DNA from 10 regions across Pakistan, will the results match what people have always believed? At first, the answer seemed obvious. Of course, regions would be different. Punjab is not Sindh. Sindh is not Balochistan. Balochistan is not the northern mountains. Different languages, different food, different clothing, different customs. Surely the DNA would show 10 separate identities, like 10 separate colors on a map. That is the common version of the story, the version most people expected, the version many people still believe today. But real science rarely agrees completely with what we expect. And this is where the story quietly begins to shift. When researchers compared genetic markers across these regions, they noticed something strange. There were differences, yes, small variations, subtle patterns unique to certain communities. But there was also something else, something deeper, something connecting almost every region together, like an invisible thread running underneath all the visible differences. It was as if the land itself remembered something the people had forgotten. Let that sink in for a moment. If a hidden connection like this exists between regions many believe are completely separate, what does that really say about identity, pride, and the walls we build between each other? Keep that question in your mind, because we are only getting started. To understand why this matters so much, we need to travel back in time. Not 100 years, not 500 years. We need to go back thousands of years, long before Pakistan existed as a name on a map, long before borders were drawn by politics. This land, the land we now call Pakistan, has always been a crossroad. Not a quiet corner of the world, but one of the busiest paths in human history. Traders crossed it, warriors crossed it, farmers settled it, travelers passed through it on their way to somewhere else, and some of them never left. Long ago, before recorded history even began in most of the world, ancient communities lived here, building some of the earliest organized cities humans ever created. Some of these cities had drainage systems more advanced than many cities built thousands of years later. This was not a backward land. This was a birthplace of human civilization. Later, waves of people moved through these lands. Some came from the mountains in the north. Some came from the plains in the west. Some came from faraway regions connected by ancient trade routes. Over centuries, these waves mixed with the people already living here. They married. They had children. They built new communities. Slowly, without anyone planning it, this land became one of the most genetically mixed regions in the world. This is where the modern story becomes emotional, not just scientific, because that means the blood running through people in Punjab may carry echoes of ancient farmers who lived along old rivers. The blood in Sindh may carry echoes of early city builders who created some of humanity's first organized towns. The blood in the north may carry echoes of travelers who crossed frozen mountain paths that few humans have ever survived. The blood in Balochistan may carry echoes of ancient desert clans who mastered survival in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. And yes, the blood in Pashtun regions may carry echoes of warriors and travelers from distant lands whose journeys blended into the local population over many generations. But here is the twist that shook researchers the most. These echoes are not separate rivers running side by side. They are more like one great river with smaller streams flowing in and out of it over thousands of years. This means the 10 regions, despite their different languages, different clothes, different customs, and different local pride, are far more connected at the genetic level than most people ever imagined. Some researchers describe it like this. Imagine 10 different rooms in a very old house. Each room has different furniture, different colors on the walls, different smells, different memories attached to it. But underneath all 10 rooms lies the same foundation, same stone, same structure, same builder's hand. This is not because the theory is loud or dramatic. It is because the evidence, gathered carefully over time, keeps pointing back to the same quiet truth. Deep connection beneath visible difference. If you're watching this and thinking about your own family, your own region, your own identity, take a slow breath, because the next part of this story goes even deeper. One of the biggest surprises in the research had to do with a very specific comparison. Certain groups in the northern regions, groups who have always taken pride in stories of distant ancestry, showed genetic patterns that overlapped more with neighboring regions than expected. This does not erase their culture. It does not erase their history. But it challenges a simple version of the story many grew up believing. At the same time, groups in the southern regions, believed by many to be genetically isolated because of geography, showed surprising genetic links to communities much farther north. Almost as if ancient roads, now forgotten, once connected these places closely. This is where curiosity turns into something emotional. Because DNA is not just data. DNA is family. DNA is grandmothers and grandfathers we will never meet, but whose choices, whose journeys, whose survival made our own existence possible. Every single person alive today is the result of thousands of ancestors who managed to survive disease, war, hunger, and hardship, just long enough to pass life forward. When science says regions are connected, it is really saying something much bigger than data points. It is saying our great-great-great-grandparents, from lands we now call separate provinces, may have shared meals, shared roads, shared struggles, and yes, shared blood, far more often than anyone imagined. Somewhere in that soil, in that dust, in those old riverbanks, there are stories no history book will ever fully capture. But your DNA remembers a piece of it. Isn't that a strange kind of magic hiding quietly inside all of us? Now here's a question worth sitting with for a moment. If deep down we are far more connected than our regional pride tells us, why do we spend so much energy building walls between each other? Let's continue. As researchers dug deeper, they found something even more emotional hidden in the numbers. It wasn't just about connection, it was about resilience. Populations in the most difficult environments, the driest deserts, the highest mountains, the harshest plains, carried genetic signs of incredible endurance. Their ancestors did not just survive, they adapted. Bodies slowly changed over generations to handle extreme heat, extreme cold, low oxygen at high altitudes, and unpredictable food supplies. This means the people living in these regions today are not just carrying culture forward. They are literally carrying biological proof of survival passed down through thousands of years of hardship. Every single person walking through these regions today is a living monument to ancestors who refused to give up generation after generation in conditions most of us could never imagine surviving even for a week. Think about that the next time you look at someone from a region different than your own. That stranger carries a story of survival just as powerful as yours, maybe shaped by different mountains, different deserts, or different rivers, but built from the exact same raw material. Struggle, endurance, hope. This is the part where the story becomes bigger than just Pakistan. It becomes a story about humanity itself, because this pattern is not unique to this region. All over the world, scientists studying ancient DNA are discovering the same quiet truth. Human history is not a set of separate boxes. It is one long, tangled, overlapping story. Empires rise and fall. Names change. Borders shift. Languages evolve. But underneath all of that motion, biology keeps a quieter, older record. A record that often disagrees with the neat little stories politics and pride try to tell. If you have made it this far into the video, you are clearly someone who does not settle for the surface-level version of history. So let me ask you something honestly. When this video ends, would you actually be brave enough to look deeper into your own family's roots, even if the truth surprised you? Now let's talk about the result that shocked researchers the most, the one hinted at in the title of this video. Among the 10 regions studied, one comparison produced something nobody expected. 2 regions, often seen as culturally distant, sometimes even viewed with historical rivalry or social distance, showed a genetic closeness far higher than predicted. In simple words, people who often see themselves as very different from each other, shaped by different histories, different social status, different traditions, turned out to share a surprisingly strong genetic thread beneath the surface. Some researchers believe this points to old migration patterns that mixed populations long before modern social divisions were created. Others believe it reflects ancient trade routes that quietly blended communities generation after generation, leaving behind genetic fingerprints long after the roads themselves were forgotten. Historians still debate the exact causes, and no single explanation is fully confirmed, but the genetic signal itself was strong, enough to catch the attention of multiple researchers working independently. Why did this shock people so much? Because in many cultures, social division often hides behind claims of ancient separation. People say, we are different because our ancestors were always different. But science, quietly and without emotion, suggested something else, that many of these divisions are far newer than people believe, built more by history, economics, and social structure than by ancient blood. This means something powerful. Divisions we treat as ancient and unchangeable might actually be much younger than the deep biological connection running underneath them. Sit with that for a second. Layers of pride, tradition, and separation, built like walls over centuries, sitting on top of a foundation that was never truly separate to begin with. If this idea makes you feel something, whether it's surprise, discomfort, or even a strange kind of hope, type just one word in the comments that describes what you're feeling right now, because I promise you're not the only one feeling it. Let's slow down for a moment and talk about what this really means for identity. Identity is a powerful thing. It gives people belonging. It gives people pride. It gives people strength during difficult times. This video is not trying to erase identity or tell anyone their culture does not matter. Culture matters deeply. Language matters. Tradition matters. The way people cook, dress, celebrate, and mourn together, that emotional fabric is real and precious. But biology tells a slightly different, deeper story underneath culture. And when both stories are placed side by side, something beautiful emerges. Culture is what makes each region unique and proud. Biology is what quietly reminds everyone that, despite these unique identities, humans in this land have been mixing, sharing, surviving, and connecting for thousands of years. In other words, differences are real, but so is connection. Both truths exist at the same time. This is not a contradiction. This is simply what humanity looks like when studied honestly. There is something oddly comforting about that, especially in a world where people often argue about who belongs more, who is more original, who has purer roots. Science quietly whispers back, none of you are as separate as you think. Now let's bring in one more layer that adds even more depth to this story. Language. Language often shapes how people imagine ancestry. If two regions speak completely different languages, people assume their ancestors must have been completely different too. But language and biology do not always move together. Sometimes, over history, a smaller group of travelers brought a new language into a region, and over generations, the local population adopted that language while their genetic roots stayed largely local. This means language can spread much faster than genes. This is one reason why some regions that sound completely different when people speak might still carry closely related genetic roots. Language became a cultural label. Biology remained quietly consistent underneath. Historians and geneticists are still studying exactly how much language shifted independently from ancestry in different parts of this region, and this remains an active area of research. But the early evidence suggests one thing clearly. The languages we speak do not always match the ancestors we descend from, which means, in many cases, two people who cannot understand each other's language might actually understand each other's blood better than they realize. If you were told your entire life that language equals identity equals ancestry, doesn't it feel strange to learn that history rarely respects such simple equations? Let's go even further into the emotional core of this discovery. There is something deeply human about wanting to belong to a great story. Everyone wants to feel like their ancestors were strong, important, brave, or special. This desire is not wrong. It is one of the most natural human feelings. But sometimes this desire causes people to reject connection with neighboring communities, because admitting shared ancestry can feel, wrongly, like losing uniqueness. But real strength does not come from separation. Real strength comes from resilience, adaptation, and survival, all things, every single regional population studied in this research clearly demonstrated. Whether from mountains, deserts, rivers, or plains, every group carried the same core human story: struggle, adapt, survive, pass life forward. This means every single person watching this video right now, no matter their region, no matter their language, no matter their tribe, carries proof of an unbroken chain of survival stretching back thousands of years. Not one ancestor in that long chain gave up. Not one broke the line. Every single person you are related to fought hard enough, adapted, well enough and survived long enough to eventually create you. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most powerful truths a human being can carry. If that idea moved you even slightly, imagine how someone else in your life might feel hearing it for the first time. Maybe this is the perfect moment to send this video to someone who has always been curious about where their family truly comes from. As we come closer to the end of this story, let's return to the original question that started everything. Are the 10 regions of Pakistan truly separate or connected in ways most people never imagined? The honest answer, based on current evidence, is both. They are culturally distinct, shaped by different histories, environments, and traditions, and yet biologically far more connected than commonly believed, shaped by thousands of years of shared migration, mixing, and survival across the land. This balance is not confusing. It is actually beautiful, because it means diversity and unity are not opposites. They can exist together, layered on top of each other, like different colors painted on the same canvas. Perhaps this is the real lesson hidden inside all this scientific data. Not a lesson about DNA charts or genetic percentages, but a lesson about how humans have always been more connected than the maps, borders, and social labels suggest. Long before modern identities were formed, humans in this land were already moving, mixing, surviving, and building lives together, whether they realized it or not. Every wedding, every trade route, every migration, every difficult journey across mountains or deserts, all of it quietly wove itself into the biological fabric of the people living here today. Somewhere in your own blood, whether you are from Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, the northern mountains, or the Pashtun regions, there's a piece of a much larger, much older, much more connected story than any single region can claim alone. Science did not create this connection. Science simply revealed something that was always quietly there, waiting patiently to be noticed. And maybe that is the most powerful part of this entire story. Not that scientists discovered something new, but that they uncovered something old, something ancient, something that was hiding in plain sight the entire time, inside every single human body across these 10 regions. The next time someone tells you their ancestry makes them completely separate from another group nearby, remember this story. Remember the hidden thread running quietly beneath 10 different regions, 10 different languages, and 10 different traditions. Remember that beneath the surface differences we are so proud of, there often lies a deeper truth that connects us more than we admit. Identity will always matter. Culture will always matter. Pride in where you come from will always matter. But so, does this quiet, powerful reminder, whispered gently through thousands of years of shared blood? We are far more connected than the lines drawn on any map could ever show. And maybe, just maybe, the real shock in this story was never about the DNA at all. Maybe the real shock is realizing how long we lived apart in our minds, while our blood, quietly, patiently, was together the entire time.